Hello, my friends. I know that most of us, if not all of us, really want to experience heaven on earth. And as I've shared before, the quote from the Gospel of Thomas, the kingdom of heaven is spread all over the earth, but man cannot see it. And I still think that is such an important quote. It's something we really need to take to heart to understand what it means and how we can bring heaven on earth. Because I know that I think everybody I talk to, that is the thing that lives inside of our hearts as a deep longing to start living in paradise again, to go back to our original state, our original source connection. And we cannot do that from up here. And I heard somebody say recently, we cannot bring heaven on earth by running around playing God. What does that mean? Well, we can look into our own lives and see where are we trying to play God, thinking that we know what is needed, that we know who's right and who's wrong, and that we need to tell people how they should be, how they should think, how they should act. That is how I see that's playing God. So it's a good question. Are you playing God? I have played God a lot in my life when I thought I knew what was right, how things were supposed to be, and where I needed to be in control of it all. And of course, when we try to be in control, it's because we're moving from fear. We're trying to control the outer world, hoping that it will keep us safe. The world as we know it is not very safe, is it? I mean, it is certainly safe. I'm safe here in my little room in the woods. I'm safe. But if we really look at the world at large, it's not very safe out there. And that's because we have been focusing our energies outside of ourselves. And we are basically trying to create heaven on earth or bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. But that earth is here, that what we see is a mental image of the matrix. The matrix is not heaven on earth. The matrix is a mental projection into our minds that we have accepted. And then we project it out there. And then we go outside of ourselves, of our heart, and try and change it. Now, I think everybody can agree that that is really what's happening out there right now. It's pretty insane. And it's because most of us have accepted certain suggestions, certain stories, certain information, call it information or disinformation or misinformation or missing information. And then we think that that is the truth. I really I want to keep saying that because once you see that what is going on in the world between us all us beautiful people who are doing our best to make a good living, to make a difference in the world, all these things, we're not bad people. They're not bad people. We're all doing our best based on the information that we have accepted, that we are trusting. And you know what is really weird to me is that the information on this side, and we are so convinced that this is right, is almost identical, but with a different twist to the story on this side. And we think we are right about it. But the information that we are accepting as truth, that is part of that programming that is happening in our mind that we accept as reality. That is the problem. So, how can we change that? How can we remedy that problem? Well, I always suggest do our best to not touch that information that's coming in and that is very controversial. If you look at the different sides, I would say it should really put a pause inside of us and go like, well, how is it possible that this side says this and this side says this, and it's completely opposite? And both are completely convinced that they're right and the other one is wrong. We have to stop and say, how is that possible? How is that possible? Do you really think that those over here are completely off the, crazy? Or over here that these people have lost their mind? Because that's what's happening in the world. And based on that is what I hear and see is that more stories are developing, more stories, more division. My friends, we cannot bring heaven on earth. We cannot create peace on earth if we keep engaging in that, and then we believe that we are the ones who will bring peace on earth. I mean, we have to see what's going on. Otherwise, we will stay lost in that insanity. And it is insanity. It is not reality. It's not the truth. It's not correct information from either side. There is something bizarre going on. And I really want to, kind of want to stand up on the rooftops and, with a megaphone saying, there is something off here. Unfortunately, it also seems like both sides can be deaf to each other. They do not even want to hear each other. This is the war we are experiencing. And I do have a concern that this is going to escalate into something bigger that is going to be very uncomfortable. And it is not because of you or me. It's not because of them or us. It's because we're accepting something that creates a huge divide between us. I heard a friend of mine very recently, she shared a story with me where she was at a meeting and there were people, this is in the early days with the injections, with the vaccines. There were like, let's say 5 or 10 on one side who were not vaccinated and 5 or 10 on the other side who were. And everybody was open to having this little experiment. And the people on one side said, do you know? No, the one side thought that the ones who were not vaccinated were Trumpies, as they call them, Trumpsters or whatever. And it turned out that none of them actually were. And the people who thought that, they were like, really, they were really surprised because that was the information that they have been fed. Now that there's a big insight there, right? And then this side would ask this side and say, well, do you know how much censoring is going on? And that a lot of the information is misinformation, it's being censored. And they said, no, we do not know that. And then these over here said, well, would you be willing to, catch up on some information we can share with you? There are some videos where there's some journalist who's done a really, in-depth investigation on it. And they said, yes. So they watched that and they said, wow, we didn't know that. So you see, there was this missing each other. And then of course when they see that, then we can see each other as equals. We're all the same. So all this information that's coming down, disinformation, misinformation, missing information, and that's a lot of it is also missing information that's not being shared. That is what causes the split. Now, as you're hearing me right now, you may totally disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I don't need anybody to see it my way, but I feel inspired to share what's coming through me, not necessarily from information, because a lot of what I read on both sides, I take it in and then I let this show me, and that's what comes out of me. I'm not expecting everybody to agree with me, but that doesn't mean that I need to be upset about it or make you wrong. I'm just here in my beautiful God self, letting this, whatever comes out of my deeper sense that resonates with me. And when I look at the bigger picture, which is something that I've always done that somehow. I've always been able to stand back and see what's the bigger picture. I don't know the minutia. I don't know what's true here and true there. I'm not interested. I see a bigger picture. And what I see is that this division is kind of man-made, programmed, matrix, something that keeps us divided and keeps us in the duality. And there's nothing wrong with duality, as I shared the other day, because there's black and white and up and down and right and wrong. That's here. But we don't need to add our, pretending we're God to say this is wrong. And, we can just see it for what it is and let it be what it is. This feels like such an important piece. And when we really get that all these things that we've been arguing about, scared about, it's all impersonal. And we learned that term from Joe Goldsmith, as I've talked about before. He talks about that this is whatever we're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking. It's impersonal. It has nothing to do with who we truly are and what is the reality of who we are and what we see out there. We see a projection, an overlay from the matrix that's being projected out there. And as long as we keep trying to make that into heaven on earth, it's impossible because duality will always be, war, peace, right, wrong. That is, as long as we are so identified with that, there is not going to be heaven on earth in our experience. Heaven on earth is already here. And as that quote that I mentioned says, but man cannot see it. We will begin to see it when we disengage from the programming that thinks we are, I'm God, I'm going to play the role of God and tell you what you need to do, what's wrong with you. I mean, that's the Old Testament, right? That's an eye for an eye. Can we get over that now, do you think, after all these years? But we're still engaging in it because we're being programmed it. So there's no blaming anyone. There's actually a deep sense of compassion for all of us that we have been so deeply, deeply pulled in to that programming that we started believing it was real and it was us. So, shall we stop that? Or shall we at least make an attempt? That's the first step. We can't just let it all go. It's running in our whole nervous system. But can you at least maybe find a place in you that's curious or interested in not engaging in that anymore? It's quite amazing. It's very liberating. It gives a big sense of freedom and peace. You could just watch it all. And you don't need to feed it. And the more of us who stop feeding it, guess what's going to happen to that matrix monster? It's going to starve. simply from lack of attention and engagement and emotional feeding it. So that is what I'm asking of myself to keep deepening in. And if you're interested, there's just an open invitation, and see if that's something you would like to do.